Good evening and welcome to today's Committee of the Whole meeting. We have biennial budget. Excuse me, I have a mint in my mouth. Presentation by Carrie Roller and Kristen Trevellis. Please begin.
Thank you, Council President O'Halloran, Council members. My name is Carrie Roller. I'm the Finance Administrator, and tonight we're just going to be providing an update of the mid-biennial budget as well as the property tax, and just go over any changes from the last presentation that we had on October 16th. There's a lot of legislation that needs to be passed with the biennial budget and the property tax ordinances. So we're really splitting this into two buckets right now. The first is the property tax ordinances. There's two of those. One will be setting the authorized levy amount by the increase of 1%. And the second ordinance is to set the property tax levy. Both of those we're hoping to do the first reading at tonight's council meeting. The second bucket of legislation is around the mid-biennial budget adjustment. And we're just going to be going over any changes so that all of council can hear, give you opportunity to ask any questions. We're then going to discuss the mid-biennial budget legislation further next week, November 13th at the Finance Committee. And then after that, we'll schedule when those ordinances will go for first and second reading. So again, here's just the calendar. We're about halfway through. Again, tonight we'll just go over any of the changes, and then next week we will be discussing further the budget-related legislation. Again, the budget-related legislation has not been scheduled yet. We will need to get those scheduled before the end of the year because we need to pass that legislation by the end of this year. So for the property tax, when we gave you the original estimate on October 16th, King County starts their estimates early, and they estimate the prior year refunds as well as new construction. And so the column on the left is what we previously presented on October 16th. And the column on the right is our final levy that we're asking for it to go for first reading this evening. The only figure that has changed in regards to the levy amount is that new construction figure actually went down by about $20,000. So King County sharpens their pencils and looks at things a little bit closer each week, sends us new updates each week. So this is as of last Monday, the figures. The estimated levy rate is still about 96 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, or an average home would see an increase of about $13. For our general fund revenues, nothing has changed here from when we presented last a few weeks ago. We're looking to add $11.4 million for our general fund revenues, $9.4 million for 2023, and $2 million for 2024. And this is just to really adjust what we're receiving, where we are seeing some of those revenues come in higher than we had previously budgeted in regards to many of the taxes. For changes to the general fund expenditures, we have two changes from what we presented on October 16th. The first is we're looking to increase our audit fees by about $200,000. We've been notified by the state auditor that our audit will be expanded from what it has been in the past, mainly because we have moved into a high-risk audit status. We received a finding on one of our federal grants around procurement. And so we are adjusting the budget to anticipate some of those higher costs. We also have a change reflected for reclassifications. Previously on the previous legislation, there was reclassifications and it said just to be determined. There is one position reclassification after review by HR that is moving forward for approval. And this is for the Signal Systems Tech Series. And so this is a series of a Tech 1, 2, or 3. We have 5 FTE positions within this series. 4 of them are filled, 1 is vacant. And so this budget is reflecting that $10,000 increase for all 5 FTE positions within that series. Here's an overview of the general fund expenditures. And so the two that had changed from last time when we had presented on October 16th was the audit fees and the other category. So still increase in our general fund expenditures, just a little less than $6 million. The 2023 figure has not changed. The 2024 figure is where you'll see the changes. Previously, it was about a savings of $300,000. Now we're seeing about $100,000 of savings. Also in this budget adjustment, we're looking to request to appropriate the remaining of our ARPA funding. And so really we're asking council to do two things. Recognize the approval to recognize the remainder of the unallocated ARPA funding as lost public sector revenues. And the second thing is if we do move forward with recognizing the remaining ARPA funds as lost public sector revenues, we will free up some general fund dollars, of which we are asking for approval to allocate additional resources in the following 5 categories here. I know that there were some questions last time around some of these categories about why we decided how much to put to each one. And so I wanted to expand a little bit more on that. $1 million for sidewalk improvements. We continue to hear from the community, and I know many of you do as well, about needing sidewalks in areas that we do not have sidewalks currently. From some of the figures I received from transportation, we have about 35% of our sidewalk network is missing sidewalks, and about 20% of our sidewalks that we currently have either need some repair or replacement. And so although we are working with moving forward with trying to get a transportation benefit district in place, when we originally had scheduled that out, we were looking to see some of those revenues come in from the Transportation Benefit District in March. And because of the timing on when we need to notify the Department of Revenue, we will not start to see those revenues until June. And so we saw this $1 million as almost about what we would be missing with just that timing, so that we can continue to move forward with implementing some of those changes with the sidewalks that we had anticipated and planned for 2024. Let's see, the next allocation for human services funding is about $525,000. This has been an area that we've continued to increase our budget and really putting more and more towards human services. We still continue to see a need there. And speaking with our human services department and MJ, you know, we saw that $525,000 would make an impact for some needed services in this area. $500,000 was for citywide cleanup. This would be overall citywide cleanup, just not in one location. This would be to clean trash, graffiti. This would also be to add some additional, we have some new trash cans in the downtown area that have a lid on the trash can. And this helps so that water doesn't flow in when it rains, like tonight, flows into that trash can. It also has a lid so that birds can't get in and pull trash out and make a mess. And so some of this funding would help with adding some additional trash cans in the downtown where we don't have some of those already. We also, in the last few years, have really focused on cleaning up the downtown. And we've received a lot of positive feedback about the cleanliness of the downtown and how it is improving. We contract with a vendor we've contracted last year with a vendor to do some downtown cleaning, and the cost for that vendor for 1 year was over $200,000 just for downtown. And so we saw $500,000 would be a good figure to be able to allocate for citywide, not just downtown, just overall citywide. $400,000 would be going to the Don Persons Renton Senior Activity Center. This is mainly to make up the difference between what we are missing in grant funding to replace the HVAC system as well as replace the roof. Anytime we have grant funding for something where we need a match or we just need a little bit more to make up the difference to get a project fully funded, that is always one of our priorities so that we can make sure that we don't have any grant dollars gone unspent. And so $400,000 would be able to make up the difference that we need for both of those projects to get them to completion. And then lastly, the CPTED, the crime prevention through environmental design, $251,000. This again is just really to clear shrubbery, trim trees, add rock rear lighting into areas that are typically overgrown or very more susceptible to crime because of their dark. We worked with our Parks and Recreation Department as well as we have members of our police department that are certified in CPTED. And we wanted to focus on one area to be able to make an impact to a specific area. So the thought was to focus on the Liberty Park area. And in speaking with both of those teams, they felt the $250,000 figure would be enough to be able to make an impact to get that area where the trees need to be trimmed and the shrubbery cleared out so that we could make an impact in that one specific area. The other thing this, again, the budget includes is some departmental reconfigurations. We're looking to reconfigure the human equity, housing, and human services department and its service lines to new departments. The reconfiguration, again, just as a summary, would move the human services and neighborhoods to the Parks and Recreation Department. Housing would go back to CED planning. Equity would be elevated and moved both to human resources and executive departments in several ways. The first would be to change the equity manager position. It would be changed to a senior human resources analyst with a DEI concentration, and this would be part of the HRRM department. The second component of expanding equity would be to have the community outreach coordinator that would be reporting to the executive department as part of the communications and engagement division. And then lastly, the third component would be having the equity commission would be now reporting through the executive department, really just elevating that commission to both the mayor's office and city council. There's a lot of position changes and as part of this department reconfiguration. So this is just, again, a snapshot summary of what we're doing and some of the changes that are moving around. Overall, there will be a decrease of 1 FTE and a savings for the general fund of over $500,000. Part of this budget adjustment, also as a reminder, we're asking for an additional 4.5 positions. 3.5 will be for the general fund, 1 for the airport's maintenance division. The 3.5 for the general fund will be the government affairs manager, a limited term construction engineering specialist, a senior finance analyst, and converting a limited term senior employee relations analyst to a full-time human resources specialist. Even with these added positions, we will still see savings at the general fund of over $200,000 from the savings of the departmental reconfiguration. The other fund summary, this is just a snapshot of what you're seeing. None of that has changed from the last budget ordinance that you had received and found the detail from October 16th. Most of this is to recognize grant funding that we received and the offsetting expenditures, mainly around there was an airport rehab project, some facilities projects, and some surface water projects, to just name a few. No changes here again from the fee schedule changes that we talked about last time as well. We're including some airport hangar and tie-down rental rates to our fee schedule that had not been there in the past, updating our transportation impact fees, and then there's a few fees we collect on other people on behalf of other people, the school impact fees and the fire impact fees. So again, the legislation that we're looking to adopt is really two different buckets. Tonight, we're looking to get approval to move forward to have the first reading of the property tax levies. There's 2 ordinances again. It's to increase the property tax amount by that 1% that we're allowed to increase, as well as setting that levy rate. And then after the Finance Committee next week, we will look to schedule the legislation around the budget and update the fee schedule. I know that there was a lot of questions last time. I just wanted to give the full council all the budget changes that we had from the last time that we'd presented and give you the opportunity to ask any further questions. And then there is a committee report for your consideration tonight that's recommending the concurrence with staff recommendation to approve the property tax levy and to conduct the first reading at tonight's council meeting. I have several of our department administrators again here with me this evening, and so please feel free if you have any questions. We're all available to answer some questions.
Are there any questions?
Thank you for coming back and giving us another great and thorough presentation. I have one question in very specifically in regards to all of the work that I've been doing for the last year when it comes to renter protections. I've been working a lot with MJ and specifically Hannah Bondmiller. I understand Hannah is going to be, unfortunately, we've lost her and she is leaving us, which breaks my heart just a little bit. But my question lies is, where will renter protections live? That's a motion that's still kind of incomplete, that's still under the works. Who is going to be our point person for that going forward? Or what department will that be under?
It will go with CED with our housing, and we have Matt Herrera who could speak to that a little bit better.
Thank you, Councilmember Rivera, Acting Planning Director Matt Herrera. Yes, CED staff will be taking this item on. We're actually meeting with HANA and other EHHS staff this week to go over the transition.
Forward to meeting with you then.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, as always, great presentation. I have several questions, but this I'm gonna do it as a follow-up of Councilmember Rivera's question. So you're gonna be up again, probably. So just to understanding, there were two positions in EHHS housing, which was the Community Development and Housing Manager and the Housing Programs Manager, right?
Yes.
And those positions, one of them is going to be converted, two of them are going to be converted just into one, which will be the senior planner.
No, the community development, let's see here, the housing program manager position will be converted to the senior planner.
The community development housing manager will be the senior planner.
The community development housing manager will be converted to the planning technician, and the housing program manager will move to the senior planner.
Can you very briefly explain the difference between these two positions and what is going to be their job? Because obviously, as Councilmember Rivera said, Hannah has left. So is anybody taking the role of Hannah, or that role has disappeared, that position disappeared completely? I just want to understand better these positions.
Sure. The senior planner role will be enveloped into the planning division. Multiple staff will be taking on that role. The policy portion of Hannah's role will be in the long range planning division, and then the entitlement or the permitting role will be in the current planning division. There's many capable staff that will be taking on Hannah's items that she was working on, including staffing regional forums and other types of items, MFTE, multifamily tax exemption program. Those types of things will be handled by the senior planner position and other planners in the planning division. The planning technician position will handle many of the monitoring requirements that the housing manager also handles. So 2 positions.
Thank you, Council President. I have several questions. I'll go with the first one is, in terms of the $2.6 million remaining unallocated funds, I am curious to know why was small business grants not included? And we've had several council member speaking of that, wanting that to be a part of the process. And I know that we increased the audit to $200K, and I know why, because I was in finance committee last time, but I wanted an answer to why is small business grants not included?
Didn't include them mainly because we've had 2 different rounds of small business grants. We did a large round when we had the CARES funding, which was a different grant from the ARPA funding. We allocated almost over $1.6 million of that grant to small business grants, and I think we awarded over 225 businesses small business grants then. The second round for the ARPA funding, the requirements around the ARPA funding are very strict in making sure we have a direct tie back to COVID and the pandemic. And so we focused on the downtown area for the small business grants. We went out twice, and we had, let's see here, we had over 40 people apply, but not all of them qualified. And so we had to have specific qualifications to show that they were eligible. And again, one of them was to tie back to that they were impacted by the pandemic. And so one of the requirements of the ARPA funding talked about a way to show that they were impacted by the pandemic is to actually show a loss in revenue. And so of the 42 businesses, we had 42 businesses that were awarded grants. We had another 30 that had applied that were not able to show actually a loss of revenue. And so we're just seeing that there wasn't as much of a need, and decided to focus more on some of the other areas.
May I have a follow-up? Or
Okay, I do have a question. The allocation cleanup, is that a one-time, a one-off kind of a thing, or do we have a plan to have ongoing clean up the streets?
I don't think we have in our budget going forward. I know that we added $200,000 for the downtown cleaning the last few years, and this 500,000 would be able to continue that. Going forward, if we wanted to continue to allocate budget, we would need to do that in our next biennial budget. So this is just a one-time amount.
Okay, thank you. Anybody with the first question? I do. Your second question. Anybody with the first question?
Thank you.
Okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman. Council President, excuse me. My follow-up is, with the EHHS being dissolved, EHHS has still probably accomplished quite a bit in the last 2 years. I'm sure there's a lot that we've learned from EHHS. My question is more, what are we doing to either document and commemorate and recognize what EHHS has done as we move on to ensure we're learning and not repeating mistakes going forward?
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Councilmember Rivera, Mary Jane Van Cleve, currently EHHS Administrator. Thank you for that question. We are looking to memorialize because we have some lessons learned and we have some opportunities to continue to grow still as an agency. Right now, we're capturing a lot of that in terms of transition. We'd be more than happy to come back to council and provide that summary. We are currently summarizing the Equity Commission in terms of the work that they've done because it's extremely important. So we plan on getting that, but we could do something at the beginning of the year to capture that. And then we are working on documenting and making sure all the appropriate departments and teams receive any documents that we have. So we're trying to be careful about the transition, but not be ahead of it. So I think depending on how things roll out, we would really like the opportunity to come back and appreciate the staff for being willing to be a part of multiple transitions. And they've been extremely supportive and really proud of the work that they've done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Kerry, you say that position reclassifications. You say that one position has been reclassified and 5 positions will be impacted by this reclassification. Am I correct?
One position series is being reclassified and 5 FTEs. Yes, 5 current positions will be impacted.
Thank you. May I know how many requests for reclassifications do we receive this year? How many positions for?
The Human Resources Risk Management Department received a total of 5 requests. That included 3 requests from AFSCME represented staff and 2 requests from non-represented staff. We consider a request to cover a series. So when Carrie was talking about one request could potentially cover 5 FTEs, 5 people, if the reclassification is approved. So in total, we received 5 position requests.
Thank you.
My follow-up question to the question earlier, I'll just refresh your mind in terms of small business. That was what we were talking about. So you were saying that there was 30 applied and they did not qualify. And the original funds that we grant was $600,000 for small businesses within the city of Renton's downtown area. Were there consideration at all by staff to even look into citywide small businesses? And then, of course, for the particular 30 that applied, do they know what they need in the future, or if there's a time? You were saying it's a strict requirement, but I just want to understand the thought process of just coming up with saying there's no need, because there's huge need in the community.
We focused on the downtown because there was two factors going on. Not only did we have recovery from the pandemic, we also had an area that was impacted heavily from the construction. So we had a lot of delayed construction because of COVID and how when we had to all shut down for 5 weeks, there was a lot of delays from that. There was delays in product delivery. And so that was our main reason for focusing down there. For the 30 that didn't qualify, it was mainly because they were not able to show a loss of revenue. And so we followed the same guidelines as what's required of cities with the ARPA funding rules. And we worked heavily with all of those that were not able to qualify to talk with about what documentation do they have. We went through and explained to them. We worked with them to kind of understand a little bit more about their business. We did have we had originally looked at just people that had a retail business because we were thinking about foot traffic coming in. We expanded that and looked a little bit more to all businesses in that area, not just those that had retail sales. And it simply was that those 30 were not able to show that they had revenue loss that would then qualify them for the grant. And we cannot give the money unless they have met the qualifications. These ARPA rules are very, very strict compared to the grant that we received with CARES. It was a little bit different qualifications and requirements, and these simply just did not meet the qualifications.
Anybody with a first or second? Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. So a follow-up on that question, just to understand, if we're converting over these more restricted funds, is there opportunity to do the small business grants but with general fund money, or is that something we're not allowed to do? Because if we're trying to convert, I just want to make sure. I mean, I'm guessing the answer is that would be a gift to public funds, and we can't do that, and that was why it would only be the ARP money that would have allowed that.
That's exactly right. We would not be able to do that.
I have a clarifying question. Kind of picking back off Councilmember Perez's question, and I do apologize if this was already answered because I'm now kind of thinking Hannah was our housing programs manager, and that position is now becoming the planning tech or the senior planner?
The senior planner.
The senior planner. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Third? Yes. I'm trying to go in order that we went the first time.
Can you explain a little bit more, which is something that I'm very supportive, but I want for the benefit of the public to understand a little bit better with examples, what is the meaning of crime prevention through environment design? It's something that we have been looking forward to do in the past, and we have not had the funding. But I think, I don't know if our regular average residents will understand why we are investing these funds in that area.
And so,
Sure. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Council Member. So crime prevention through environmental design. I'm now wearing the interim administrator hat for the Department of Parks and Recreation. The reason we're focusing on that for Liberty Park is many teams already included in their construction and planning projects, and that's essentially as they develop and construct and design, that it allows clean line of sight for our officers when they're in vehicles. It creates a sense of increased safety by increased lighting and visibility. So Liberty Park was one of those great examples because we have a hardworking city staff, but sometimes you need additional resources applied to further tailor and bring back some of the landscaping that has been extremely successful and growing over time. So what we want residents to feel when they walk through that park is that the trees are raised, that bushes are 3 feet and lower, that lighting is improved, and that everyone has a sense of safety. So SEPTED is the acronym. And it's literally that. It's meant to be a deterrent of negative and unwanted, but it is not meant to make it unwelcoming in any shape or form. So we're doing this with empathy and with an opportunity, urban, but also on the technology and expertise that lives in our police department where they have advanced certification in the program. So it will slowly roll out with our Department of Parks and Recreation, but it will be rolling out to multiple departments where staff will all be receiving certification so we can all be trained on this. We're also going to be increasing education and exposure to our park board so they can also be assisting us in it. So it's just another tool to not utilize law enforcement in ways that they don't need to be, but rather provide them support so that they can better patrol, but also empower city staff to help improve our environments.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems to me that all eyes on this would be helpful. So if possible, I mean, I would be very interested in the training too, because I use the parks and I walk the streets. So please consider inviting public also
Okay.
in some form or another, because they all have their favorite places they go, and, you know, the blackberries are out of control or whatever it is, right? So please consider expanding that.
Thank you for saying that. Our police department has also offered to provide resources for our business community as well as our residents. So that certainly you're kind of jumping ahead in a great way. But we want to empower our residents and all staff. So they are certainly not to be left out. We just want to make sure we know exactly, to Councilmember Perez's point, the program, we can understand it through each one of our positions within the city and then turn around and empower our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Little dances. Okay.
So with that, are residents encouraged to use so that people know that they can use Renton Responds if they see something that might need a little septet love?
Yes, you're again thinking ahead. So we had a great conversation with Megan Black and Laura Pettit in communications. And so they have a whole plan that they would roll out to incorporate it and to make sure that it's there. We want that tool set. We want, again, residents to see those are good, easy impacts where if you say this shrub is a little too crazy, we can go and address that. And again, if it's something that improves line of sight from vehicles and, you know, an elderly person or mom in a stroller, that it also makes you feel better when it's, you know, not that overgrown, we will certainly do that. But we appreciate the suggestion.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Playing catch up here on the second.
I know. I just waited, I guess. All the good questions got asked first. So my question is on the sidewalk improvements, the 1 million for that. I understand. So if that was from, I think you said March to June, as far as that gap in time, is there a plan in place? I know obviously we have a sidewalk plan, but would we prioritize, and that I'm kind of maybe asking a question that's more of a thought, would we prioritize equity in that and say these are the areas or the census tracts that identify the most need based off an equity score for how we allocate those sidewalks? Because I can get on board with it. We don't want to wait, but I want to make sure that we are correctly prioritizing the areas of greatest need first.
Good evening, Council. Councilmember Kervin, yes, it will be one of the considerations. Clearly, we don't want to just allocate the dollars based on equity. Part of it has to do with safety. It's going to look at need. We want to make sure that we put the sidewalks in the area where we see, such as safe routes to school or on school routes. We want to make sure where the pedestrian traffic's there. Part of what the SAND project was this year was to take a look at 2 areas of the hill to try and look at traffic safety and try and identify routes that the residents showed us where they were going through on a daily basis so that we had an understand where the most traffic was. The idea is to invest those dollars in the areas where the most needs are, both from a volume perspective, but also safety perspective, but also from an equity perspective. Some of the neighborhoods that will likely not have sidewalks be the ones that need it the most because of the age of the development, et cetera. So it's one of the considerations we will utilize as we look at going where we will allocate our sidewalks going forward.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question with that one. I'm also a bigger supporter of of this project, because I don't remember a day since I became council member that I have not been advocated for sidewalks. And I think we have made the case that this is for the benefit of the residents as much as the benefit of the business community, for all reasons. However, I understand that could be some confusion why we are allocating ARPA funds to sidewalks if we already putting in place a transportation benefit district. I'm sorry. So to be able to collect enough money and to actually put it out there for the impact of the community, it will take time. And unfortunately, over the last 2 decades, we have not prioritized sidewalks because of lack of funding. So because we have other priorities that prevent us from doing that. Could you explain a little bit better how the transportation benefit district will work and when we will start seeing impact in our city from this funding, please?
Certainly. So the Transportation Benefit District will be a 0.1% sales tax. Should the council so agree to approve that tax going forward, that'll be coming to you in the next month or so. And at that point in time, once that is approved, then we will submit it to the state for inclusion on the sales tax receipts that will come back to the city. Problem is, it will not go into effect until March. So if we submit it by the end of the year, it will not go into effect until April of 2024. And then we won't start to see the revenue until June of 2024. So that'll be just the first trickle of revenue that we can see going forward. So we won't collect a full year's worth of revenue until the following June. It's almost a year behind. What this allows us to do is to kind of get a jump start on that and allow us to do some sidewalk work with both the money we collect in the first half, after the end of the first half of the year, and the second half of the year, along with the money that we would from this allocation of dollars through the budget adjustment. The other thing is the summertime is a prime construction season. So if we don't have dollars this coming year, then we lose that construction season and it pushes us out, which means we have to try and do more in the 2025 season. So this is really going to help. If the council does decide to pass the Transportation Benefit District, it allows us to put some impact into the community in the first year of that adoption.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question regarding the community needs assessment. I know, MJ, you've spoken about that earlier, but if the 2.6 million, part of it, if not all of it, was an unallocated fund pending the community needs assessment, I'm very much concerned how we're divvying it up. So can you explain in terms of when will we getting the result for the community needs assessment and in terms of recommendation? I know you mentioned it earlier, but just for the public's information.
No problem. Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. So we should have the completed assessment, and it'll be a data analytics comparison from where we were from 2013 to present day. We'll be providing staff recommendations based on the analytics, but we also are leaving it open for if there is recommendations from council in terms of deeper dive or additional research that needs to be provided. We are trying to move forward with several navigating programs right now to better connect our existing human services and also to reappropriate and strategically be more selective for the selection of our next round of human services. So we will have completion in terms of that data side-by-side analytics by the end of this year. We're just trying to gauge when they'll have it complete. If it's by the end of the year, we will be coming to CABAL presentation. If not, we will do it first of the year if they're closer to the end of the calendar year.
Or I'll just wait.
Please, Councilmember Vaughn.
So given that the assessment won't be done until the end of the year, I wanted to ask in terms of the allocation of fund that was pending that, right? And we have to complete the funds by the end of the year and so forth. Are there money in the general fund's budget to make sure that, and this is a Carrie and UMJ question as well, if you're able to answer, to address the issue that's needed because we allocated it for that purpose, although now what we're doing is divvying it up in different ways. I'm just kind of concerned of the result when we get the assessment result and then not having any, kind of plan to address that with money.
I can speak to, we also have things in the works for better utilization of 1590 funds. So it's not just ARPA right now. We have, again, a couple of contracts underway and also reappropriating and being more strategic with the dollars you've trusted us with for human services should make an impact as well. And Carrie's been very supportive about being responsive and making sure we're adaptive to what further comes from that report. Carrie?
We talked quite a bit about this in the last several years about really increasing our human services funding, and we really have made an effort in doing so. It definitely, we know this is a priority of council and the community. The main thing with these ARPA funds right now is really allocating those to the lost public sector revenues to be able to free up to be able to use general fund dollars. Making that decision right now, we can allocate these funds as we're suggesting. We can do it differently, but allocating those lost public sector revenues now will be able to give us the opportunity to let Treasury know. We know that human services funding is always really important. So whenever we're developing the budget, making sure that we're making decisions around where we want to be allocating dollars to make an impact overall is what we do when we're creating the budget. And so we definitely will be looking at this human needs assessment and looking at what we're funding so far and making sure that we can to make it right.
That's a great question for me. Thank you. So totally agree. Obviously, and I think I said this last time, that we don't want to lose the money. So no brainer for me to allocate it for lost public sector revenue. Are there any items on this list, kind of in that vein, that we would need to start and allocate now versus wait later? I mean, are there items that if we delay, we wouldn't be able to do what's proposed? I think on this list here, and I know that gets kind of specific with each one of those, but.
Right. I think that we could decide on how to allocate it if we needed to. We could delay. I think, we definitely could to decide at the beginning of the year. We wouldn't want to push any planning for some of these things out too far, because I think that there is definitely need in all these categories. The one that we wouldn't want to delay would definitely be the senior center improvements, because we're trying to make sure that we make that match. I think each one of them has an argument to delaying would not be the best, but mainly allocating that to the lost public sector revenues is the first and foremost item that we need to be doing for these ARPA funds.
Thank you. And the question wasn't meant to suggest that we do delay, just what are the consequences if we do? Thank you. Thank you.
Please.
I have a question in terms of, I know we're just talking about the particular amount of 2.6 million here for reallocation, but in terms of the, I did ask last time as well, in terms of the $10 million that was left for city operation, I thought part of the sidewalk improvements and all the things we need to do for infrastructure was also part of that package deal. Could you kindly enlighten us in terms of what we use that money for, whether it's now or you can send us an email, because it's everyone loves sidewalks and I love sidewalk, but I'm just wanting to understand kind of the whole totality of the circumstance in terms of our funds.
I did send an email to the council, but I can go over that. We allocated funding for a Shop Local program to support our business community. We allocated some of that funding to human services. Part of that also went to pay for the human needs assessment. And we're making some changes here at City Hall where we moved customer-facing staff to the first floor for greater access to the community. This includes also moving our Equity, Housing, and Human Services Department to the first floor. And we have plans underway right now to create a customer service hub. We had some funds that went to help pay for some police body cameras. Those were very costly equipment, and so some of that funding went for that. We expanded broadband access to downtown Cork and community centers. We had some feedback that we had some areas of downtown as well as our recreation and community centers that didn't have a strong Wi-Fi. So we expanded some broadband access there. Some of it went for hardware and software support for remote work for our staff. That would include some of the new equipment here for our remote council meetings. Let's see here. Some of it went to pay for a grant analyst position to help manage some of these ARPA funds and also citywide grants. We added a health and safety officer to respond to health and safety issues within city facilities with the pandemic. Some of it included new software. We replaced heating systems in multiple of our city buildings, public workshops, community centers, and some of it is allocated for some upgrades to the HMAC system. And lastly, upgrades to audio and visual equipment, just with all of the remote meetings that we have, not only within our city, but with consultants and other vendors that we work with that are also doing remote work, adding that equipment so that we could better conduct meetings.
Just for clarification, that's from the $10 million that were set aside for city operation. Because I know that we did body cameras, that was extra $1 million. And so I'm not sure if that's included or is that additional?
That's all the entire amount that we have allocated for city services. So there was $18.1 million in total. It might be easier for me to send the spreadsheet that I have than go over it with you.
That'd be great.
But that list that I went down was where we had allocated when we had spoke as council back in 2021 and making an impact in all those areas with those funds.
I have the email here, but it wasn't as clear, so thank you.
Councilmember Perez.
Thank you, Carrie. This was not going to be my question, but now that you mentioned about the space on the EHHS, do you have any idea now what we're going to do with that space?
Don't know.
Okay. Can I now ask my real question? Oh, no, Councilmember. No, I have done this too many times.
No.
And I'm driving crazy with
it's
the
fine.
president of the council. It's my lack of protocol and parliamentary procedure. So please do me. Okay, thank you. Sorry, my question was more related about the departmental configuration and position changes. There is one position here that is a communication outreach coordinator. This is a new position or a new request.
Community Outreach Coordinator is a position that was in EHHS and now it's just moving to the Communications Division of the Executive Department.
And I know what is what is the job description of this position?
Community outreach position. This was the community outreach. It was for engagement with the community through all of the various communities that we have. Sorry, I'm sick, so I'm a little bit rummy. What it is providing the two-way dialogue with different communities and engagement opportunities. Did a lot of work with the Multicultural Festival, the Lunar New Year celebration, and organizing that. In communications, they'll be doing a lot of civic engagement opportunities. They would be the one potentially coordinating at town halls, any kind of meet and greets that we have with council or with the mayor's office or any of the administration. There's a lot of potential there. But it was already an existing position, and it's just being slid over so we can utilize all of communications in coordination with that position.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, but I think I know what you meant.
Okay.
Thank you.
This may have already been touched on in finance. Sadly, I'm not in the finance committee. But I do have a question. In regards to the $200K increase in our audit fees, because we are now high risk, what happened there? Why are we now high risk?
Very sad.
Yes, it is.
So we are audited in 3 categories by the state auditor. So our financial statement is audited, and that we pass sufficiently fine. And then we have our federal grant audit. And that's why these federal grants are very particular, and there's lots of I's to dot and T's to cross. One of our federal grants, we procured, we're required to go out and competitively bid with federal grants. There's really no dollar threshold. You have to competitively bid. And so we procured for some legal services that were not per the rules of the two CFRs. When we originally procured, we didn't think that they would reach the level that they did. And so we thought that the avenue we had gone down was sufficient. But because of the magnitude of the services that we needed, we should have gone back out and procured differently. We were hoping that we would be able to get past it just because this is a unique requirement that we needed with trying to get some of our right-of-ways in place with a transportation project. And the person that we contracted with was an expert in this field. But the auditor didn't see it the way we saw it and gave us a finding for it. So for the next several years, we will be high risk. And we'll just have to have our auditors here a little bit more often. The last area that they audit us is on internal controls, and they're currently doing that right now. There will be a full report probably sometime in December where all of you will be invited to if you want to attend to hear more about finance and auditing and all that's around that. But this has nothing to do with how hard our staff works on these things. They're very, very complicated. It's honestly like reading tax law. It's just really, there's a lot to it. And so I think someone could read it one way and the next day you read it a different way and could interpret it. So having a team behind this and having members that are watching each other and kind of working through it together has been really helpful.
Oh.
Yes.
How many years until that little flag falls off our sheet?
3 years.
3 years? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not terrible.
At 200,000 each.
Ooh.
Right now our audit is. So we might not need all of that. But we have a lot of federal grants coming in right now. We've been awarded quite a few. And so what they'll do is they'll look at 40 to 50% of our federal grants that we have. And the amount we've received is a lot more than we have in the past. So I anticipate there will be a lot of cost to this.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is my final question for tonight. I'm gonna reserve the rest of my questions for the Finance Committee. So this question is for you, Mr. Van Bailey. Thank you very much for your email explaining about the Government Affairs Manager position. I did had a very productive and positive conversation with the mayor because at the beginning I was very confused because the table show a lot of policy advisors compared with government affairs relationships. So at the beginning, I was confused with that we needed a political advisor to help with policy development, or we needed a government affairs representation. The mayor explained it to me, and I understand the need. My question is, this will be a full-time employee. Have we given a thought for this to, instead of considering as an option to be an in-house, to be a contract?
Yes, like we had in the past. That has been a discussion. I think in conversations with the mayor and staff, having somebody in-house without any of those additional contracts. I think all of our contracts have had additional cities that they've represented or different groups. If we had one that was specifically dedicated to Renton during this time with all the projects, whether it's transit, all those different things, that it would benefit the city and the council to have somebody that is knowledgeable and representative of us full-time. That would also help out with getting the grants. That was one of those things that we were missing, the federal grants and things like that. That was a finance request. A lot of things come through those channels. To have somebody help us out due to the complexity and everything that we have with those grants.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very, very kindly. Thank you very much. I have a committee report here that I will be signing. And we're adjourned. Thank you.